Welcome to Affordable Foundations, Legacy Impact Through Housing, the podcast that explores how housing shapes communities and creates lasting legacies. I'm your host, Cecilia Cossio, and each week we'll dive deep into solutions, challenges, and opportunities in affordable, attainable, and workforce housing. From current housing models to innovative approaches reshaping the industry, we'll explore the policies, investment strategies, and community-driven initiatives that are making a real impact. Housing isn't just about buildings, it's about people, opportunity, and the future we're creating together. We believe everyone plays an important role in affordable housing, whether you're a real estate investor, developer, policymaker, property manager, or someone passionate about creating positive change. Affordable Foundations is your go-to source for insights and inspiration. So let's break barriers, redefine possibilities, and build a legacy together. Thank you for joining Affordable Foundations Legacy Impact Through Housing. Today's guest is Rich Buquet, and he leads Garland's Habitat's mission to empower families through affordable homeownership. With a background in nonprofit management and a passion for housing equity, Rich has expanded Garland's Habitat's footprint to include critical repairs and aging in place. Let's get started. Rich, tell me a little bit about what drew you to Habitat for Humanity in Garland, and how has your role expanded over time?
Well, good afternoon, Cecilia. Thank you for hosting me on this podcast. I appreciate the opportunity to share about affordable housing. What drew me to Habitat was really, I felt like it was sort of a God opportunity. I worked for many years in Christian ministry. My construction background, just as a youth, my father was a master plumber, pipe fitter. I have other relatives that are tradesmen, and I kind of grew up in the construction industry, but that was not where my father wanted me to be. That was not where I wanted to be. There was a kind of a hard life. So I went to school and I studied music, and I was actually a professional musician, a performing musician for many years. And then I worked in Christian ministry as a worship pastor, and then as a associate pastor, and then a senior pastor eventually. And a few years ago, I decided I wanted to change, felt like I wanted to do something different with my life. I went back to school. I got my MBA at University of Texas at Dallas, and I was looking for an opportunity to go into corporate America somewhere. And during that time frame, interviewing and looking at different job opportunities, and this Habitat opportunity came across my desk, and I just thought, wow, this looks like sort of the perfect storm for me. Needs nonprofit experience, needs business experience, financial management, volunteer management, which I did a ton of in the church ministry, and also construction background, which I sort of had done everything in construction that there is to do except steel work, high elevation steel work. I wouldn't do that because I'm a little bit afraid of heights. But anyway, this opportunity came aboard. I went and I interviewed. They thought I was the best candidate, and so they gave me the opportunity. I really didn't know that much about Habitat for Humanity at the time. Like everybody else, I knew that they were an affordable housing company and that they built affordable housing using volunteer labor. And that's about all I knew about it. So there was much more to learn, and I just dove in and started to learn quite a bit. So as far as how has my role changed, pretty drastically and significantly from the beginning. The first couple of months, there was a learning curve and just sort of soaking in everything that I could possibly learn about Habitat for Humanity, about my affiliate, Greater Garland affiliate, and then about the way that the affordable housing industry worked. And just so that your listeners understand, a lot of people have a misunderstanding that Habitat for Humanity International is just one big family of organizations, and we all work together and share. And that's actually not the case. Each affiliate, it's a federated system, although Habitat International has sort of now turned it into a franchise system with their fee schedule. But it initiated as a federated system so that every individual affiliate was independent. You shared the branding of Habitat for Humanity. You obviously wanted to share the mission of Habitat, but you had to raise your own funds. You had to get your own volunteers. You had to, create your own business model based on Habitat International's input and guidelines. And so every affiliate is independent. And people say, well, I meet people all the time that say, oh, I served with, you guys on such and such in such and such a place. And I say, where was that? And they tell me, and I say, well, that was another affiliate. That's not my affiliate. So how my role has changed has been just a continuation of sort of being the comprehensive knowledge base of what not only Habitat for Humanity International is and the mission of HFHI, but also the history of my affiliate. We're a 31-year-old affiliate, and trying to carry forward and honor all the work that's been done before I came along. I've been here for 8 years now, since 2017, just trying to change the model to accommodate the 21st century. Because frankly, Habitat started in the mid-'80s, and it was a great organization started by Millard Fuller there in the Atlanta area, in the Georgia area. And it quickly grew, but it's changed a lot. And so the model of what worked in the 90s, it doesn't necessarily work in 2025. So that's how my role has changed primarily, is just learning how to be nimble, learning how to pivot, learning how to leverage different resources and opportunities to be able to build as much affordable housing and impact as many people as possible. So it's sort of a big question, sort of a large answer. I apologize, but my role has just changed drastically over the last 8 years.
Well, I think you made some great points there. And fresh eyes is what I wrote down, like fresh view, fresh perspective, not being in that background, but coming into it. It gives you a new view, a new perspective, new ideas. So I think, tell us if somebody was interested or wanted to be part of Habitat for Humanity from they talk a lot about sweat equity. Tell us what that means for you guys.
So the original sweat equity model is one that it's a little bit different depending on what affiliate you go to. But the basis of it is that a family will contribute 350 to 400 hours of sweat equity to building their home or to building another home in that geographical service area. And that's required as a partnership portion. There's 3 criteria for a person to qualify for a Habitat home. Number 1, they have to have a demonstrated need for housing, which is usually pretty self-evident and easy to accomplish. Number 2 is they have to have a willingness to partner with Habitat, and that's the sweat equity portion. But it goes a little bit beyond that, because partnership with us means, you have to be a good advocate for what we're doing. You have to be a good citizen, a good a soldier in the troops, so to speak. But and then the third aspect of the criteria to qualify is that you have to be able to pay an affordable mortgage. So a lot of people also have a misunderstanding. They think that Habitat gives away homes, and we just simply do not. That would not be a sustainable endeavor. Now, the sweat equity portion is the way that the homeowner basically shows that they got skin in the game, that they're going to do what it takes to be a homeowner. The program provides a pretty good amount of subsidy to the individual, depending on the affiliate that you're with. In the past, my affiliate, they sold homes for very low cost. So, the homeowners got an incredible deal. They got a home that was worth twice or 150% of the value more of the house than they paid for it. The sweat equity is kind of like, it gives us a chance to have the person show that they're really serious about being involved, that they're not just looking for a handout, but they're looking for a hand up. And that's a motto that Habitat International has embraced. We give a hand out, not a hand up. Excuse me, the other way around. We give a hand up, not a hand out. And so even old Habitat volunteers, a lot of them, when they'll come to a job site, that'll be the last thing. They'll have a prayer just before they start volunteering and doing the work. And then they'll all put their hands in like, a sports team, and they'll say, Habitat's a hand up, not a handout, break. So the sweat equity gives the homeowner an opportunity to show that they are willing to work hard to receive a home or the opportunity to purchase a home. Yeah, that's really a great question, because Habitat in the past, I think, depending on where you're looking at the houses that Habitat's building, that sustainability or that long-lasting durability of the home has been suspect. And so to make a value for the homeowner, maybe the construction wasn't as quality, or the items, the accoutrements to the home were not as, higher quality. When I came in, that's kind of the first thing that I noticed about Habitat for Humanity when I started learning about what it really was. I saw a couple of different neighborhoods. I'll give you a couple of examples. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but there's a neighborhood in Plano. It's filled with little Habitat homes. I drove through it multiple times when I worked in Plano, and I knew those were affordable housing homes. That's what they are. And, they're nice little homes, but you could tell they were affordable housing. And I've been to other places where Habitat's built homes, and you look at them and you go, yeah, that's a Habitat house, or that's a low income house, or that's an affordable housing unit. And my desire is to change the image of affordable housing. In fact, I've got a trademark that is just that, changing the image of affordable housing. We want people to look at the homes that we build and go, wow, that's a beautiful house. Is that available for purchase? I would really like to buy that. And fortunately, God's blessed us with the ability to do that on most of the 11 houses that we've built over the last 7-8 years. And so we try to really raise the level of the quality. And how you do that, it's not that hard. It's just you have to be a little bit more disciplined, a little more detail focused, and good training for your volunteers. If you have volunteers out there that are pounding nails or painting or putting up sheetrock or whatever the case may be. The use of subcontractors for roofing. Blue Nail Roofing is an organization here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're awesome. They always put roofs on our houses as we build them at no cost. And that is what helps us, things like that. So if we get a free roof, or the homeowner gets a free roof from Blue Nail Roofing, number one, we have a high quality roof because it's installed by professionals. And number two, it helps make the house affordable because we're able to pass that savings on to the homeowner. So it's really just sort of a cobbling together of all those types of resources. We'll often get gifts in kind of construction materials through our Restore. Restore is a model that Habitat International uses to help support affiliates, affordable housing work, and corporations and companies and individuals make donations to the Restore. Most of the stuff we sell to the public, but I have a policy with my affiliate that anything that comes in that's construction related, I get first dibs on. So, we might get some sinks in or some toilets that are like brand new and in boxes. And we say, hey, we're going to save those for construction. We're going to put that into the construction of the next build that we do. Doors and doorknobs and locks. There's other gift in kind programs that Habitat International provides. Schneider Electric, they provide free circuit boards, panels and breakers so that you can put in the electrical. Encore Wire up in McKinney here where I live. They've been fantastic. They've been a great donor to Habitat, and they'll donate wire to the house. So what we try to do is we bring together good quality materials, good quality builders, or building techniques that we can pass on to the volunteers so that it's done right. And then we build a really solid, durable house that we can still offer at an affordability rate, but we can also feel really good about the fact that this is a great house and it's going to last 40, 50 years. All houses have maintenance. I've lived in the same house for 22 years here in McKinney, and I have to maintain my house. Sometimes the faucet breaks or the water heater goes out or whatever. And so that just happens with homes. It's not the level of the home builder. It's just stuff breaks. So there's only so much of that we can control, but we do our level best to give the homeowner just the very best quality product and change the image of affordable housing, not only in their eyes, but in the community's eyes. So they look at that house and say, wow, that's a beautiful house. How can I get one of those?
Yeah. That's great to hear. And you guys, I know with many of the affordable programs, there is income levels that are required. And you said they have to be able to afford to pay an affordable mortgage. For the DFW area, for the Garland area, what is that set at?
Well, HUD sets that rate. Housing Urban Development sets that rate each year. It usually comes out in June. And this year it just went up, which is a good thing, because affordability is becoming a much more far-reaching issue than just for low-income people. So to give you an example, for four-member household living in Dallas County, I believe that the 80% area median income rate is right about $93,000. So that sounds like a lot of money perhaps, but maybe it's really not, when a family of four is trying to manage and make it. So that's the rate. The 80% AMI is like as high as we can go. With Habitat International, they actually prefer if we try to work with people in the 60% area median income range or lower. And frankly, it's really hard to do that. If people are making only 50 or 60% of the area median income, that's considered very low income. And it's really hard to get them into a mortgage that is affordable for them without just giving them a whole bunch of subsidies. Now, we do that at times depending. The house price itself, the cost of the house, of the mortgage itself is not the only factor. They have to pay for insurance. They also have to pay their property taxes. And so you got a couple of other variables there that you have to work with to try to make the home affordable. But 80% AMI is basically our target. That's what we use for our critical repair program and what we use for our home build program as well.
Yeah, and for our listeners, as an example, if the AMI is set at 100,000, then 60,000 would be set at the 60% rate, and 80,000 would be at the 80% rate. So that's just a number I'm throwing out there. I think we're talking about like 120, 115, 120 right now is what it's set at, and that's where the 93,000 comes in. I know the numbers just came out, and I should have looked that number up before we got on here, but I mean, that's just to give you an idea of how this works. So when you say it's really hard to get someone approved on a 60,000 annual income if the mortgage on this house is going to be $2,500 a month or $2,000. Yeah, I'm just throwing these numbers out there, but this is where you have to be very where it's critical. You have to understand, like, okay, here's what it's going to cost to maintain this house. And taxes, like you said, is teaching people what the tax rate is and when the taxes come out every year. One of the things that I do is anybody that reaches out to me, I will tell them, give them some resources on how to dispute taxes on their homes, because some people don't know that you can dispute them, and then it does, their livability becomes out of reach, because sometimes it is what it is, and we have to teach people how to use the resources available to them to assist them in maintaining these households. So thank you for all that information.
I'd like to just jump back in, Cecilia, on the taxes portion, because I think it's a really important, here in Texas for sure. I mean, we have perhaps lower property taxes than a lot of states do, say like Illinois, California, of course. Many states have higher property taxes than we do. And so if people are in the affordable housing industry, here's a little tip. This may not work for their local appraisal district, but it may. So I'll share you a little secret. So I negotiate personally with the Dallas County Appraisal District. And I tell them, look, I'm building this house. It's for an affordable homeownership scenario. I said, but they're not going to be able to afford. The house is going to appraise for $360,000, but they're not going to be able to afford taxes on that. So what can you do? And the Dallas County Appraisal District has been awesome. And they've helped us in several situations where they've lowered that tax appraisal value down closer to the cost of building the home. And then that way, the first year the homeowner comes in, they have that lower tax value. And immediately we show them, we train them, teach them, and help them to get a homestead exemption, right? So every homeowner is allowed to get a single homestead exemption on their primary residence. So we help them apply for that and get that. And then what that does is it caps the lifting of that tax appraised value to 10% per year. So, their house is worth $360,000. That doesn't change, but their tax appraised value starts way lower. And let's say at $150,000. And then the next year, because they got their homestead exemption, all it can go up is 10% or $15,000, right? So the next year, their appraised value is $165,000. And then the next year it goes up, $16,500. Because the appraisal district, they're gonna take the max of whatever they can get. But what that does is it gives the homeowner a ramp so that they can get the benefit of home ownership. Because as you well know, Cecilia, home ownership helps in every way a family to accumulate generational wealth, but it improves their life in every way, their health, their job situation, their education situation, just every aspect of their life improves because they're living in their own home. And so that ramp of 6, 7, 8 years, gives them an opportunity to build up equity, to build up resources so that they can handle a higher tax appraised value. And unless we can get the Texas legislature to address that and codify that across the state of Texas for affordable housing homeowners, this is something that we'll just have to try to do to mitigate that issue.
It's phenomenal and such a blessing to have that foresight of like, this is what's going to happen. And your ability to communicate with the county to set that on the front end is, to me, a blessing to the homeowner that goes in, because that is one of the areas that I feel hits them the hardest when they go buy homes and their taxes go up from, what they had estimated based on that first year to years after, and not knowing to file that homestead exemption. So thank you for doing that. I know this is part of what you do, but it just kind of touches my heart to hear it, because you guys are out there in the field and you are touching these people each and every day on how you're able to help them. So let's go into the volunteer side a little bit, because you guys work with a lot of different volunteer programs, I'm sure. And you mentioned, Blue Nail Roofing, Encore Wire, Schneider Electric. I wrote those down. They help you guys. And I think you said the name of the store is Restore. Is that correct?
Yeah, Restore.
So isn't there one? I believe there's one off of, is it 30?
Yes.
Yeah. See, you said it and I'm like, I remember that store as I would drive by 30 and you guys were over.
That's not my store. That's Dallas's store.
Okay. Where's your store at?
They happen to be in my geographical service.
Yes.
Which is, there's a little bit of a rub there, honestly. My store is on Broadway Boulevard, 2909 Broadway Boulevard in Garland. We like to say we are the Garland Habitat Restore. The other store on I-30 is Dallas's store. They have several other stores throughout Dallas County as well.
Well, we will make sure to visit the one on Broadway, the Garland.
That's right.
Well, tell us a little bit about how you are able to pull in volunteers. Like I said, you mentioned these three, but do you guys reach out? Do people just reach out to you? How does that work? What strategies do you use to get out there and have volunteers? And I asked that question because, as I stated earlier, we have a multitude of listeners on here that could volunteer with you all. They have the skills to assist, and I think it would be good for them to understand that.
Sure. Well, it's a combination of all the ways that you just mentioned. So people do contact us on our website. There's a form that they can fill out or they can call. And when they call on our phone, we have an answering system that says if you're calling to volunteer, then press 3 or whatever it is. And that way we get their information. We connect them up with a volunteer opportunity. And many volunteers come and they serve in our Restore because there's always way more work to do there than we have time to do and people. And we also get court-ordered community service. So, somebody gets a speeding ticket or something and they can't pay the fine, then they got to do the time. They got to volunteer in the community. And so we receive, it has to be low-level offenses for people like that. But then we reach out to corporations and we cultivate relationships with companies and corporations and churches and civic groups. We cultivate those relationships, and then over time, they'll have a group come out and volunteer. We try to make it a great experience for them, so they'll come back and do it again. Frankly, we have our volunteerism has gone down quite a bit over the last few years, primarily because of COVID. When COVID happened, Habitat International sort of put out an edict and said, you can't use volunteers anymore. And, everybody's going kind of crazy in the country. And if you do have volunteers there, they all got to wear masks and they got to have hand sanitizer. And, you got to run them through a sanitation booth every 15 minutes. I'm just joking about that. But it's about that bad. I was like, well, it's not worth having volunteers if we have to do all this. You got to sterilize every hammer, sterilize every hard hat and stuff like that. So all of our volunteerism just sort of went down at that point. And then we started reviving it again in 2022, 23. And now we're getting back more to our norm where we'll have a company will contact us. Maybe their HR department contacts us and says, hey, do you have any build sites going where we can volunteer for a day or a half a day? And so we just coordinate it like that. We used to have a volunteer coordinator that was a full-time position through AmeriCorps, and they would interface with all those folks that wanted to volunteer and create all those opportunities and schedule all that. But right now we don't have a volunteer coordinator. So if people want to work with us, they just need to contact our office and we'll let them know what's going on and how they can be involved.
That's great. Thank you for that. And at the end of the show, we'll give out more information on how people can contact you as well. Before we move on, I want to ask you, what memory on a volunteer story sticks out the most for you?
I think one of the most exciting memories that I have of volunteers was something that we got sort of through the Veterans Build Department of Habitat International. It actually wasn't through them, but it was David Gilkinson was the director of the Veterans Build Department. And when I became a executive director in 2017, I went to Atlanta for the new affiliate leader orientation. It was like a week-long workshop. And in that time frame, I learned of the Veterans Build Department, which unfortunately they've just closed recently. But at that time, it was healthy. And we joined so that we could become a Veterans Build affiliate. Only 14% of the roughly 1,300 affiliates at that time were Veterans Build affiliates. But we're very veteran-centric, and we love to serve our vets. So we had a Veterans Build initiative where we moved 3 1920s houses. They were 100-year-old homes. They were sitting in the heart of Garland, and we actually lifted them up off their foundations and moved them to other infill lots, built new foundations, and put the houses on those foundations. And now Navy veteran families live in all 3. But during that time frame, David Gilkinson, that he knew that we were doing this, and he had already left Habitat, but he was in contact with a lot of different companies as he worked for another veteran-centric organization. And he told us there's this company, they've got like a leadership retreat, and they're bringing 150 people to Dallas, and they're looking for a place to volunteer. Would you be able to pull that off? And I was like, normally we say 15 people, for a work site. And so I try not to look a gift horse in the mouth too much, and I saw this as an opportunity. So I engaged it, and we had 1 week to plan it. And 150 people came on a couple of buses, and we offloaded them, and we had them on 3 different houses. And in one day, they built 3 single-car garages for those 3 Veterans Build houses. Not complete, but we got a good start on them. And they were also a truss manufacturer supplier where they supplied the brackets that held trusses together. So they supplied the trusses for us. We were going to try to build the trusses on site. And they said, no, we don't want to do that. We'll just get the trusses and have them dropped over there to you. So it was a wonderful day. It was like total mayhem and chaos. I had as many leaders as I could pull together to organize it. And we had all these people running around like ants doing all this building. And then there was a big portion of the group that was pulling siding off of one of the houses. Because again, these were 100-year-old houses. We completely rebuilt them. So they were doing all this demo while the others were building these 3 different garages. And it was a really fun and exhausting day. But at the end of the day, it was like, wow, look what we just accomplished in one day. So that was pretty cool.
That's amazing. And, just making it happen, right? It's not something you normally do, but sometimes things fall in your lap and you just got to run with it.
That's right.
And, you guys, it sounds like you guys not only had a great time, but made a definite impact on those 3 homes and the families. So, yeah. Well, you guys rely a lot on not just grassroots giving, but corporate sponsorships. So how do you cultivate those type of relationships and not just cultivate them, but sustain them, especially during times when people are, trying to hold their money a little bit longer, right? You guys still need this type of sponsorship. So tell me a little bit about that.
Well, we have been blessed with some really good relationships. And the only way I can say that I can't take a whole lot of credit for it other than the fact that I'm always willing to answer my phone. I'm always willing to talk to people, and we'll just get calls. I remember, 8 years ago when I first started, I would just get a call from a company and they're like, yeah, we love Habitat for Humanity. We'd love to be involved. And, how can we be involved? And one of those corporations was Anderson Windows and Doors Corporation. They not only have the corporation, but they also have an Anderson Corporation Foundation. And then the founders of the Anderson Corporation, they have a third foundation as well. And all three of those groups have been great supporters. And it's not so much cultivating as it's just relating with them and letting them know what we're doing, letting them know the things that we have coming up. They've been a blessing to us through not only product donation of windows and doors, but also financial contributions through their foundations. Then Sherwin-Williams has it was Valspar, but Sherwin-Williams and Valspar merged, and Valspar donated paint. There's these gift in kind donations are very valuable in the building process beyond the financial foundational type gifts of, $30,000 or $50,000 or more. There's really no way to cultivate them that I'm aware of other than just going out and talking to people, trying to go to places where there's representation of these different organizations. I've reached out to a couple of foundations with success, and they've been willing to have a conversation about learning what we're planning on doing. Some foundations are very focused on certain areas, maybe education or childhood development. And so we try to find the groups that are focused on housing. We try to find groups that are focused on veterans because we're very focused on veterans. And so it's just a process, and it's really just relationship and being able to demonstrate that they're putting their money in a good place. So, we've gotten donations of, say, $5,000 or $10,000. We show that we've been good stewards of that money. And then the next year they give us more. They give us $30,000. And then the next year they give us more, $50,000. And so that's a part of the process. I guess I'd put that under the category of cultivation because it takes determination, diligence, and good stewardship management practices. But if you can demonstrate that and you can show these companies what you're accomplishing, that's what they want to see. They want to know that their money and their materials and things are really going to impact the end user, the person that otherwise wouldn't be able to get a house, and that blesses them and, strengthens their corporate mandates as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you talked about children and education. One of the things that I say is it's really important for a child to have a home. And we all know that, right? But like when they have that sense of security, their ability to learn just elevates 100x. That to me is like most important, letting them know like you have a place to go into at night. When you get home from school, here's your home. Regardless of what is happening, this is a home that they can walk into, that it is their home. So yeah, as a child, I remember that feeling. And I really push that out there to get people to understand when a child doesn't have that security of a home, the impact can be very negative. So between this type of housing and multifamily, getting them that sense of security to be able to wake up in the morning and go to school with some sleep because you're not having to sleep in a car or, all these other challenges that these children have to face at times. So to me, that's part of childhood education.
Yeah, it's a great point, Cecilia, because there's many, hunger and feeding people, medical wellness, mental health issues, all these different things are related to housing. And,
right.
I think that's one of the things that is probably the challenge for us is to try to change the narrative and try to help people understand just exactly what you said, that when you bless a child with a stable place to live, it changes everything and it elevates everything in their life. For the better. And, you and I spoke at the couple meetings that we were at, shared a little bit about our backgrounds, but at the last dinner that we had celebrating our 30th anniversary, I told the group about my mom who, 50 years plus ago, she bought a house and got divorced from my father, and all us kids went to live with her, and she had this house that God just blessed her with. And you know what her mortgage payment was? $30.16 a month, and that's crazy. It's just crazy. But we had a house, and we were poor as dirt. We didn't always have food to eat, but we got hand-me-downs and charity clothes dropped off at our house, which I hated, flood plants and stuff like that. But you know what we always did have? We had a house. We had a home. We had a place where we could go lay our head. And that made all the difference in the world. And, my mom still lives in that house today. And it's an amazing thing what a house will do and how children can benefit from that. And it gives them a new lease on life.
Yeah. And, when you are able to provide that stable home, when we talk about, that generational impact, I mean, this is a prime example here. You are an example of what having a home can do. I know I am, and I know my future legacy will have those same blessings. And that's what I strive to build. And that Affordable Foundations name, that's where that comes from for me, is because it is a foundation to everything. Having that home, it's so important. So let's try to, we've probably got about 10 minutes left, and I want to know a little bit more about, what we're seeing in the future for you guys beyond, let's start with beyond, the new construction that we talk about. You talked about critical home repairs and aging in place programs. So I was raised by my grandparents, so that aging in place programs is really important for me to learn about and how it can help others in the community. My grandparents had me to assist, but they, were not able to just make repairs to their home as they got older. And there's not a lot of people out there, or I say there's not, that's a very broad statement, but there's people out there that don't have family to help them. So tell me a little bit about what that means for those in the Garland area.
So we have a very robust critical repair program. It is veteran centric to a large part, but we also have other sponsors that help us to serve people other than veterans. We work with Texas Veterans Commission. We're starting our 6th year as of July 1st, serving veterans at no cost to the veteran. TVC, Texas Veterans Commission, pays for the home repairs. And we've served a lot of veterans, probably over 90 veteran households through TVC grants. And all they have to do to qualify is have that income level of 80% area median income or below. And we can do major things. It's not just aesthetic stuff, like, hey, I'd like my house repainted because I don't like the color of it. But many of these veterans and people are living with inadequate bathrooms, kitchens. They can't cook healthy food. It's not safe. Their house has a lot of trip hazards, or it's just not safe for them to be in the home. Maybe there's some mold issues or things like that. So we work with Texas Veterans Commission for veterans. We work with Federal Home Loan Bank. They have a SNAP grant, which comes out a couple times a year. And again, that's an income-based grant, but it can help somebody with, if they need a new water heater. It's not as large of a grant, but if they need a new water heater, or they need a HVAC system, or something like that, we can help them there. Federal Home Loan Bank, FHLB, also has a Haven grant, which is for veterans. There's some different criteria to get that one. Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, TDHCA, with them, they have an Amy Young Barrier Removal grant. That's for people with disabilities. So you just have, if you have a disability and you have a safety issue or an accessibility issue in your home, then we can use that grant to help you. I just got certified as a CAPS person, which is sort of redundant. It's a certified aging in place specialist certification. But this is techniques of universal accessibility that we learn of how to build homes, and when we do repairs, to make homes so that even if a person doesn't need an accessibility feature in their home, that we can prepare it for such a feature in the event that that is needed down the road. So for people to be able to get involved with that, all they have to do is contact our office, and we have a special team that takes in their questions and answers them, takes in a pre-application to determine if they qualify. And if they qualify, then if we have money, we'll serve them.
Awesome. It's, again, like you said, there's repairs sometimes that you don't see that they need, and to have an organization that can get in there and make these repairs, because sometimes these people don't have anybody that can help them. And but the work needs to be done in order for the place to be habitable. So that's great to hear. So looking ahead, what's your vision for scaling affordable home ownership in your area over the next 5 years?
Well, over the next 5 years, we want to basically double our critical repair program, for one thing. Now that I lump that under affordable home ownership because we're helping existing homeowners stay in their homes, that aging in place aspect. And we, with other team members, and if we can get additional grantors, then we can easily, I mean, there's much more need out there than we have funding for. So we can easily double our program in the next 5 years and serve even more households through the critical repair program. As far as the affordable housing builds, we've got several things going on. And what we did last year, our board of directors for Habitat Greater Garland and I, we stood up 2 new entities, Texas Homes CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. And then the second organization is Texas Homes CDC and CLT, which is a community development corporation and a community land trust. And both of these organizations are 501c3 nonprofits. They're independent of Habitat, so they're not restricted in the ways that Habitat is as far as the geography. Habitat Greater Garland can only serve Garland, Rowlett, and Saxe. Those are the only 3 cities that our geographical service area allows us to work in. But through Texas Homes, we can serve anywhere in Texas and even beyond. And so our plan is to build small pocket communities to start and scale that up to larger neighborhoods. So really more of a developer, as rather than just building a single infill lot house one at a time. It's just not enough impact for us. And so right now we're working on getting a piece of property purchased from the city of Garland, which is going to be a veterans pocket community of about 15 homes, all for veterans. And we're working through the details of that. So we may need to put that under the land trust to make it work in the city of Garland. But really what our land trust is just to do is to be a first step for people so that they can purchase the home and, they just lease the land, but we don't consider that as the last for final step for them, their forever home. We want them to be able to graduate into a home where they own the home and the land, because that's the best way to build that generational wealth. So that's our strategy going forward, is to, we have that a stair-step model where if they're of such low income that they can't afford a house and land, then we'll put them in one of our land trust homes. And then if we build these pocket communities of 15, 20, 30 homes, and we make them all affordable. And really the biggest portion of this is that these are going to be mixed income communities. So what that means is all these houses will look relatively the same. They'll have different elevations and different looks, but they're all going to be the same quality and they're all going to be the same standard. And then, we will subsidize and we'll use our affordable housing programs that we have available to help subsidize some of those homes for that group in that 80% AMI or below. And then the other homes we'll sell on market rate, and the families that are blessed to be able to afford market rate homes, they'll purchase those homes, and then they'll be in mixed communities where people are not divided or segregated by income level or status in life. And that's kind of a personal goal of mine that I would like to accomplish in the next 5 years, to establish that mixed community model and maybe leave that as an example or as, the foundation for a future legacy of breaking down those barriers that divide us by income and station in life.
Awesome. Well, how can our listeners connect with you or Garland Habitat for volunteer opportunities or partnerships, or just to connect with you guys and learn how they could be part of this movement?
Sure. The easiest way is to go to our website, which is garlandhabitat.org. That's garlandhabitat.org, all one word. And we have all kinds of information there. Or they can contact our office through email. They can simply send an email to info@garlandhabitat.org. Or they can call our office at 972-414 and contact us that way, and we'll put them together with the right person, which will get them started on partnership or volunteering or home ownership or whatever they'd like to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate all the information you put out here and all the work that you guys are doing. I pray for an abundance of blessings over everything you guys touch, and know that I look forward to being part of whatever it is, you guys. I don't live in Garland anymore. I used to. So, I still have a tie to Garland, but I wish y'all great prosperity. I just know that you guys make a difference out there, and that is what matters. So, thank you for joining us. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Thank you, Cecilia. I really appreciate the opportunity to share a little bit about what we're doing, and I wish you the best of success as well in spreading the word for the need for our culture and our mindset to change about housing and about affordable housing. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you today. So thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. And to our listeners, affordable housing isn't just about buildings. It's about people, communities, and building a legacy for future generations. So get out there and be part of that change. Look forward to seeing you guys soon.
That's a wrap on this episode of Affordable Foundations, Legacy Impact Through Housing. I hope today's conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a fresh perspective on the role we all play in creating sustainable, thriving communities. Affordable housing isn't just about buildings. It's about people, opportunity, and the legacies we leave behind. Every step we take to improve access, challenge stigmas, and drive solutions brings us closer to a future where everyone has a place to call home. Make sure to subscribe to Affordable Foundations on your favorite podcast platform and share this episode with others who are just as passionate about making a difference. Follow us on social media for more insights, updates, and stories from the field. And before we go, a special shout out to the incredible teams working on the front lines of our multifamily properties. The property managers, maintenance teams, leasing staff, and all those who make housing possible every day. Your work is the foundation of stronger communities, and we see you. We appreciate you, and we thank you. Until next time, let's keep building a legacy that lasts.